I'm Adam Close. I'm a solutions engineer at Octopus Deploy. I've been here since 2019, so I've been here a few years now. My background is all things technical. Started on a help desk, worked into a kind of software engineering career, where I then found myself doing more of the CI/CD pipeline work, and became a DevOps engineer before moving to Octopus Deploy. And I'd like to introduce Baturay from Bion. So, hi Baturay, how are you doing?
Hi Adam, thanks. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Start of the week. Hopefully, my internet lasts today. So I did forget to mention that my internet provider is actually doing some work in the area. So if there are any dropouts, that's kind of heads up. We are live today, so Battery will hold the fort while I reconnect into the session. Yeah, I'm great. Apart from that, I'm great.
I have your back. No worries, Adam. Okay. Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Baturay, and I'm working as a cloud and DevOps consultant at Bion Solutions since 2021. So my background is again technical. I would say I had experiences again as a consultant and as a DevOps engineer in other companies as well. And before jumping into the DevOps, I was working as a sysops administration and Windows administration and infrastructure, etc. So and yeah, after jumping into DevOps, so yeah, it's really good to be here. I can say that. So yeah. That's all about me, I could say, Adam. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think one thing we probably both got in common, there's lots to learn in the DevOps space, especially when it becomes technical, when you're spreading yourself across all sorts of different technologies, whether you are doing Linux or Windows or you're doing something Kubernetes, we both understand the challenges of those learning curves. So it's nice to share the screen with you.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
So I will move on to the next slide and just do an introduction into Octopus Deploy. I'll make this really, really brief, but we were founded in 2012. We have a global presence of sales and support in APAC, EMEA, and America. We've got over 350,000 people who use Octopus Deploy. And a nice little stat there as well of the 600,000 plus machines use our agents for deployment. And we have 150 million plus deployments that have happened in Octopus Deploy since we were founded in 2012. We have a number of example companies that we can highlight who use Octopus Deploy. Stack Overflow, Xero, Disney, ASOS. But yeah, I'll kind of just an intro into Octopus, and yeah, I suppose it's worth mentioning and I'll touch more on this later on in the session. But we focus purely on continuous delivery, deployment, and release management. So, Baturay, I'll hand back over to you and give us an introduction to Bion.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Yeah, we are a technical consultancy company based in London. So we provide professional hands-on services specializing in DevSecOps, Kubernetes, cloud, and DevOps. And also we have partnerships with companies which develop solutions for DevOps area. And Octopus Deploy is one of them, and we are really happy to working with them. So today I would like to talk about 5 major challenges that companies face in continuous deployment process. So as a quick look, that would be logging, rollback, authorization, notification, and pipeline creation. So let's start with the logging part. So as you know, it's crucial for a developer or a DevOps engineer to be able to watch each deployment step closely. But this is not the case every time. For example, some tools only show the logs after the whole operation is completed. But what is needed is to see the logs of each step as live. And it allows us to take action immediately when each step has failed. So, okay, let's start the pipeline again, or maybe change something and trigger it again, something like that. So it's really important. And if the tool is able to provide you some in some levels of logging, like not just info, maybe in the debug level as well. So that would be good to fix if there is a failure in your process. So another one is rollback. So this is another big challenge that companies face because when most of the time when they need a rollback, they are in an emergency situation and they want to do a rollback operation in just one click. So if you are able to see your previous versions in a UI, and if you could do a rollback in just one click, clicking on the version on that UI, that would be super fast to roll back your application and maybe cover your application in a downtime situation. And I know that it's super easy with Octopus, so I experienced it. So yeah.
Rollback is something we get asked about a lot at Octopus Deploy, and you'll see in the kind of the small demonstration I have of how easy it is to actually roll back in Octopus Deploy. And there are some challenges with rollback that people sometimes kind of underestimate, and that's database. So once you've deployed a new service, let's say for example to production, and you've actually rolled in some database changes into that application code as well, rolling back the application code is fairly straightforward. It's just replacing the old container back into, let's say if we're talking about Kubernetes, replacing the old container back into into a live state. But then you've then got to consider, okay, well, how do will the new database changes work with the old version? So there are some challenges with rollbacks. But we have done, I say we have a colleague who's done lots of work on the best practices for rollbacks. So if you do have a database tied to your application, what are the best ways we can make the application code backwards compatible with the old version? So yeah, short story though, lots of our customers ask how easy to do rollbacks, and sometimes it's easy to actually roll forward than it is actually to do a restore. And that's something you just decide at the time of building the pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Adam. So yeah, let's continue with the next one. So yeah, authorization. DevOps teams, are looking for a solution to manage access to the projects following the least privilege principle in their CD tools, because they want to set a granular permissions, and they want to restrict who can see or update a pipeline, and as well as who can trigger deployments. So maybe, most of the time, maybe a developer can trigger some deployment to their environment, but they should not be able to make a deployment to production one. So this is really important that a CD tool must have, let's say. So
Yeah.
yeah, Adam, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a great point, and we talk about that Octopus of backed RBAC permissions around deployments. So you've got a developer who can just freely deploy to dev and test, create infrastructure in dev and test. But then at most organizations there is normally a team that will hit the deploy production button. There might be approvals on that, whether that's through a service manager such as ServiceNow or such as ServiceNow. But then also kind of in Octopus restricting the ability to actually deploy a particular application to production. And you see that in some common industries such as finance, where regulations are really tight, where a developer cannot deploy to production. So being able to provide RBAC controls with teams that say this team can only deploy this project to this environment is an absolute necessity for a lot of organizations, and I'm sure you've seen that.
Yep. Thank you. So yeah, let's jump into the notification one. It's a requirement that the teams are getting alerts on time about the deployments, because either a developer or again a DevOps guy would need to know what happens in their pipeline. So I mean, is it continuing, or it's failed at some step or something like that. So it's important to how easily you can integrate other tools to send notification from your CD tool. So it's again, I know, super easy with Octopus Deploy, lots of integrations, and you can send it either to Slack or any other tools. So yeah, but this is how to say, easy to integrate is the important point here. So okay, as the last one, from my perspective as a cloud and DevOps consultant, it's the most important one. How much effort you put while creating a new pipeline is a big challenge. So DevOps teams mostly try to implement fast provisioning solutions while creating new pipelines and CD tools. But it's not just creating the pipeline itself. In your CD tool, you also have to create a new project and new deployment targets, and integrate them with your pipeline, etc. So if your tool is giving you the ability to create new environments as code, so that's powerful. So yeah, and for all these challenges, I'd like to ask, okay, we know the major challenges right now, but what about the solution? So
Yeah.
I know here, I'd like to mention a real life example from my previous experiences, Adam. So some companies develop their own CD tool to meet all those requirements. So in one of my previous companies, the situation was exactly the same. They are a big broadcast company which serves live competitions like football matches, basketball matches, and that time when the game is going on, they need to scale fast, and the new instances need to get the latest deployment as soon as possible after launch. So for all those the requirements, they created their own CD tool, But after some time, as the technology grows, the tool couldn't catch the new technologies. For example, it was not able to deploy a Kubernetes container into an environment, either in cloud or on premise. It doesn't matter. So and at some point they had to make a choice. Either they would create the tool from scratch, and or to choose an existing tool to meet all those requirements. And I was there at that time, and from my previous experiences with Octopus Deploy, I suggested to use it. And I made a presentation of how Octopus can cover all those requirements, and they really liked that. And our team just started to think about how we can integrate our systems with Octopus Deploy. That was a real life example, I could say. And here I want you to show how Octopus can easily do all those things. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great, and thank you for sharing that story. It's always a question, that isn't it, when you go to look at a tool. Sometimes it's build versus buy, and sometimes where you mentioned there, where it works for an existing infrastructure, but then when they want to migrate to Kubernetes, that particular tool they built didn't support Kubernetes. So no, it's not just a case then of, okay, well, we need to port our application code over to Kubernetes. We've then got to think about the deployment tool, in essence, slowing down that time to market. So when you're thinking about building new applications and new releases, the developers just want to be focused on writing the code for the applications that generate your organization revenue, and picking the right solutions, whether that's CI, CD, monitoring. If you can get those solutions off the shelf, inevitably that's going to speed up your time to market when you're deploying new solutions, because you don't have to have time to think about updating or building in-house tools. So yeah, I'm hoping from that story it was a successful story, and time was saved. But yeah, I think on top of that as well, it sounded like they had some potentially niche requirements from a deployment tool, and as you know, in Octopus Deploy is API first. So if there was any custom things that they needed, they were built to integrate with Octopus as well. Oh, cool. So let's move on. So I kind of just so essentially before this webinar, I asked Baturay to kind of list out the challenges that he's seen in the past and what he sees at Bion today, and with his customers. So I kind of wrap this up into a slide of kind of what I heard and what Bion's customers need. So first of all, provide consistent deployment process to repeatably and reliably deliver software to all of the Bion's customers and clients and users, and in relation, following the technical value, what does an organization get from that? It's improved customer and developer experience. I could talk forever on developer experience, Baturay, but I'm going to put a pin in it because we only have 15 minutes or so left. But yeah, developer experience is huge at the moment, and a quick summary of developer experience in deployment. How quickly can you get a new service from no code all the way through to deployed to production, which includes your code, your your pipelines and your infrastructure. So, but yeah, I'll pull up in that for now. And then the kind of second part I heard from some of your challenges is, improving the speed, quality, and most importantly, visibility of deployments. And you need a kind of centralized control plane of all those applications that you're deploying. And then lastly, you talked about notification, you talked about authorization. It's something that implements governance, risk, and compliance controls to the deployment process. So, and what does that do? That's to reduce risks with audits and your application. Does that sum up some of the challenges that Bion have?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, what you're listing here actually not just covering our challenges on, and also adding more features on top of that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And this is what Octopus aims to do. So if I move on to the next slide. So what I'll show you, I'm going to move into some really short demos of Octopus Deploy to give you just an introduction to the product. But what I'll show you is how we overcome the visibility challenge with a centralized control plane of all your deployments. Then move on to a repeatable and reliable deployment process, like how that works in Octopus. And then show you how we implement and improve governance, risk, and compliance in relation to what Baturay was talking about in terms of restricting access to certain environments. But first, just a quick overview of the Octopus workflow. So where does Octopus fit in kind of the DevOps landscape? So we have you have developers who write code. They commit that to a source code repository, such as GitHub, Azure DevOps repos. Then you've got your CI tool that picks those code changes up, builds them, runs the unit tests. At that point, this is where Octopus picks up here. So CI/CD, CD is not CI, and Octopus purely focuses in on handling, doing the best of breed of CD. And we pick we pick up where the CI server finishes, and then we can deploy to any infrastructure, whether that's Windows machines, Linux machines, platform as service architecture such as Azure Web Apps, through to Kubernetes or ECS. So going back to what Baturay said about sharing his experience of his customer, where they built an in-house tool, but they didn't support Kubernetes. Octopus continues to support all infrastructure that you need to deploy to, and not just focusing on one end target, such as Kubernetes. You have ECS in there as well, Azure Container Service. So yeah, that's a overview of where Octopus fits in the landscape. So first, okay, what I want to show you is the visibility part of Octopus Deploy, and I'm going to head over into Octopus. The first screen that you're going to get when you log into Octopus is the dashboard. Down the left-hand side here, we can see all the applications that we're deploying in Octopus Deploy. And we have this group of microservices under this particular project group. So we have an orchestrator, and then we have some microservices here: API service, cart service, database. Now, the thing I kind of want to highlight is we have visibility of where each service is deployed and their version. So, Baturay, somebody asks you, hey, I need to know what version of the OPS cart service is running in production. Really quickly, into the dashboard, you can say 2023.2.12.14. And, that's really, it's really easy to get to, and it gives you that visibility. If we drill down into this particular task, we've got a task log, and task summary, which gives us a view of everything that's been deployed for that particular service to production. And I'm going to jump into another demo in a second to show you the kind of real-time status object check that you kind of talked about earlier. But if we go back to the overview of this particular project as well, we get more of a granular dashboard of this particular service, so we can see all the releases that have been deployed, you know, previous and to which environment. So hopefully, Baturay, that kind of answers that question around the visibility and overcomes that challenge of if somebody kind of it's not normally the developer, but somebody outside of the development team, you know, a C-level person who wants to know what's happening with the applications and where they're deployed, and hopefully that this overcomes one of those challenges.
Yeah, exactly, Adam. So, I mean, one of the most powerful things in Octopus Deploy, I would say, is this dashboard. So, I mean, because in most of our customers, so I mean, we hear that, okay, how do I know which versions are deployed to which environment? So and yeah. With Octopus, so yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, I can say that.
Yeah. So okay, I'm going to just jump back to the slide deck and just kind of go, okay, we've looked at the visibility. We can see we've got a centralized control plane now. Let's look at a repeatable and reliable deployment process. And for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump into a different space. Just a heads up for what I've just done there. Octopus, you can separate out your application that you're deploying in what we call spaces. Essentially, there's hard walls between each spaces that teams can be assigned to. So if you've got one team working on one set of applications that don't need to interact with the other team, you can kind of split them out. So there's hard walls between each team. But I want to go into my Octo Pet Shop projects, and I've deployed 2022.1.0.96. That's run a set of steps that deploy Octo Pet Shop out to Kubernetes, and then we deploy that to test. So whatever was deployed in development is going to be deployed to test. And we kick this off, and we'll see this start to run through a series of steps now. That's going to deploy my application out to Kubernetes. And while this is running, you know, one of the things I mentioned, we talked about governance and risk. Everything that you see on here, so we can see all the task history, we can see all the previous deployments, we can see who ran which deployment to which environment. You can see I just did that a few seconds ago. We can see any changes that have happened from the previous release to the current release. So that's really great for audit. And that stays till the end of time as well, which is important to mention. So what we can see here, Octopus is running through a series of steps that's going to deploy a container out into Kubernetes. And I think, Baturay, you may have touched on this, but you want a real-time view of when you're deploying applications. You can see what's actually happening when what's happening in Kubernetes as it's getting deployed. So hopefully in a second we will see a live status check of us deploying a container into Kubernetes screen.
Yeah, Adam, maybe you can just click on the task log and as I mentioned. So here we are able to see the logs as live here. So
let's go. So what we can see here, when it's deploying to Kubernetes, it's gone a little bit quick, this deployment, but we can see it's deploying the pods, it's deploying Octo Pet Shop Web, it's deploying the replica set, it's kicking off the deployment. We can see the secrets that is deployed as well, and this is all in real time. And we get some other information that's been pulled from Kubernetes as well. So once the deployment's finished, you've got additional information to use. I think one of my colleagues said it. I always use it for the external IP address of the Kubernetes cluster to get at that really easy. But that's your live Kubernetes object status. Checks if you are deploying to Kubernetes. You can see in real time what's getting deployed into Kubernetes. And we've deployed that to test. We want to run the same set of steps to production. So we deploy this then to production. And again, to give it a second to kick off. However, one thing that's quite interesting on this one, we actually have an approved production deployment. So even though we're creating this repeatable and reliable deployment process that deploys the same packages across all the same environments, there are a couple of nuances to the deployment process sometimes. So for example, a manual intervention step, you don't want that to run for dev and test, you just want that to run for production. So I'm going to do something a little naughty here, Baturay, and I'm just going to assign this to myself. Normally you would assign this to a different team. I probably should have given you access to this so you could have approved my deployment, but I'm gonna spell that right. I'm gonna approve my own deployment and just proceed. And then it's going to run through the same steps again and deploy my application code out to Kubernetes in the production cluster. So yeah, that's, and again, we've signed up there kind of what we just kind of talked about. That's the repeatable and reliable deployment process. But yeah. Any questions for that, Baturay?
No, I think, yeah.
No? Cool.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the last thing I want to touch on just in today's session is implement governance, risk, and compliance. And Baturay, you mentioned some of the challenges that you face with continuous deployment is you've got different teams in organizations, and some team members have access to deploy certain projects to production, some only to dev and test. What I'm going to have to do now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to share a different browser. What I'll do actually, I'll flick back to my original space, which is Octopus Bion space. And we can see here, I'll go to this particular project. I can deploy this, logged in as Adam Close, I can deploy this to production. But if I just present a different screen, I just stop that share and share the screen again. And just come into, I'm now logged in as a QA member. I'll just go back in. I want to look at the orchestrator project again. This is where if I go to deploy to production, I haven't actually got the ability to do that. And again, that's really important when you do have to restrict access, so to stop people deploying to production whenever they want. So we had in the previous deployment, you saw how I put an approval on. At this point, somebody can't even actually press the production deployment. And I think what's worth mentioning, you have all these and you have all these tools, and it's not going to restrict how fast you can deploy your applications to production.
Yeah, one question here, Adam. So as we can see on the screen, so as a QA, you are now able to see which version is deployed to production. But I mean, are we able to restrict that one as well? Not to see.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yes. Although I always think it's handy for everybody to have full visibility of what's actually deployed in production right now. So, but yeah, it's definitely possible. And one thing that's probably worth mentioning. So we talked about rollbacks and how easy it is to roll back. But let's say, for example, I want to roll back my test from 2023.4 .5.41 back to .40. I come into here, into the application, into the pipeline, and I can just hit redeploy and redeploy the old release. So we've got the dashboard telling us which versions are currently running, and then I come into each release and just hit redeploy, and it's just going to redeploy the old release. So hopefully that covers off the rollback as well.
Yeah, so, totally covers, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to have to switch. Apologies about this. I'm going to have to stop sharing again and just present my original screen, which is this one here. No. Let's go do that again. So stop sharing. 1 second. There we go. Yeah, so here we go. So if we go back to the slide deck, and that's kind of a thank you from us, and thank you for joining. Is there any questions? So I do see we do have one question. No, must be hard to dedicate a developer or team resource to catch for new technology if you're maintaining your own tool. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we talked about, I mentioned this earlier. If you are maintaining your own tool, you've then, when you are thinking about creating new services and upgrading to the latest technology, you've not only got to think about the actual code of the new application service that you're deploying, you've also then got to think about the tool that's actually going to deploy them. You want to leave that in the hands of something like Octopus Deploy. Do we have any other questions? Okay, cool. So thank you for joining me today, Baturay, and
thank you too, Adam.
I'm sure we'll do something again soon. And yeah, lastly, again, thank you for everyone that took the time today to join us. I hope you have a wonderful day and a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Yeah. Bye-bye.